2.3% of the British population are British Asian Indian, and 1.9% are British Pakistani. Despite this, there has only been 11 players to play professional football in England. Even fewer have played in the Premier League, and none have played in an England shirt. So, is it a lack of skill, cultural differences, or is English football still haunted by institutional racism?
What I want to know is, why does it matter? Why are we asking how many Mormons play? Are we asking how many Jews play? Are we asking how many atheists play or Christians? And why are we asking this question? And if there is a low number of Asians, well, then maybe Asians aren't as interested as other groups.
It's about giving people the opportunity to prove themselves, and don't see, where they're from, the colour of their skin, as an issue.
There's actually 5,200 players at professional level of the 92 clubs, and we've got 10 British Asian players, which is staggering.
Isn't just adding to the racial division in this country so much if there are so few Asians? Aren't we free people and we can play football if we want to or not if we don't?
It's like everyone's very divisive. It's always us versus them, me versus you, and if you look like me, you pray to my God, you eat like me, you drink like me, I like you.
Institutional racism exists within football.
Why can't we just forget about the colour and play the game?
My name's Anwar Uddin. I'm the Diversity and Campaigns Manager for the Football Supporters Federation. I lead on the Fans for Diversity campaign. One of the very few British Asians that play football, or mainstream football in this country. My dad's from Bangladesh and my mum's English, and had a really unique career in that, I've played from the very top to the lower levels of the football, uniquely being one of the few British Asian players to do so. I've seen and experienced a fantastic career, but definitely a different one with the background that I've had. And just really interested in that, when I signed for West Ham as a pro in '97, I was asked, why are there such a lack of Asian football players playing football, mainstream football in this country, especially at the top level? And I thought that myself and then others that followed would kind of almost click on a conveyor belt of players that would, play across the leagues. And sadly, 17 years later, I'm still being asked the same sort of questions, which is quite disappointing. But to generalise and say that the game and everyone in it, has a massive issue, I think is unfair. But I think it's right to say that there are problems.
To understand the current situation that young British Asians are going through, we spoke to London-based amateur players who feel that being British and Asian has hindered their chances of becoming the professional players they dream to be.
Some of us feel that we're not represented enough in terms of football. I don't know, it's a stereotype that Asian footballers are not liked for some reason.
It's hard being Asian and being a footballer. Usually people don't tend to see you as a footballer. If you were to say, first thing, what sport do you play? Cricket.
Recently, I've been into academy trials and everything, and because of race-wise and culture-wise, we don't really get chances.
They literally stereotype, yeah, he's not all that. Let's just let him play, but we're not going to be watching him.
In terms of players, the opinion from some of them is that, and this is an opinion I share, and I've got a lot of research to back this up, that the scouting system generally overlooks British Asian players, generally overlooks British Asian football communities.
Dr. Dan Kilvington is a course leader at Leeds Beckett University. He has published British Asian Exclusion and the Football Industry in 2016. His other book titles include Race, Racism and Sports Journalism, and Sports, Racism and Social Media. Scouts
and coaches tend to biologically racialise British Asian players, just like they would with black players. So black players are quicker, stronger, faster, have different genetics in some way. British Asians are smaller, slighter, not as physical. There's no evidence for this. This is just a stereotype. Race from a biological perspective does not exist. But these stereotypes do exist. and they actually prevent scouts and prevent football clubs from actually going to watch certain British Asian teams, clubs and leagues and scout these players. And I've been told many times that British Asians are still seen as a bit of a gamble.
When we go over to academy trials and we take our boys there, our boys are maybe the only Muslims there or the only Asians there.
On the first season, during the end, West Ham picked me up and they took me on board. So I was in the club for about 8 months and it was a really good experience for me. So, and unfortunately I didn't make it.
When I was around 18, 19, I had a trial for Brentford. I thought I did really well because sometimes you can just tell I'm like the best player here. And yeah, didn't get picked for some reason.
I remember going once to a trial for Brentford and me and my mates were like Asian, so I believe myself that we were better than them, but they picked up on the whites and the black people there, so I feel like that was really unfair.
There may be instances where it is genuine, but who decides? You know, the problem is when you have the victim, for want of a better word, deciding whether or not it was racism, then you allow them to dictate whatever they like.
Anne-Marie Waters is the leader of the political party For Britain. According to their website, they are, quote, a positive, pro-British, pro-democracy party that believes in preserving the culture and values of the decent British majority. Others have claimed she has a far-right, anti-Islamic agenda, but her party claims to be neither left or right.
You're going to have to accept you're not going to get what you want out of life sometimes, and you can't just scream and demand that you insist it's because I'm black, it's because I'm a woman, it's because I'm Asian, whatever it may be. Your word isn't enough.
I was telling a lot of people about it. They said that no, that's just the case. They said that oh, you guys are not good enough. But in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, I was clearly good enough because I scored 4 goals, they didn't score none. I made a lot of assists. I was like literally the playmaker there, so how was I not good enough?
Like if you're a young Asian player, I don't think you get as much trials and opportunities because managers know like, Asian players, there's not a lot of them, so they just sort of disregard.
Ever since then, it's not put me down, it's made me want to prove people wrong because I've got all my friends telling me, I've had other coaches tell me that you should be up there.
In my research, I've actually approached several clubs about this topic and they just shut the door on you. And they perceive that if you ask any questions around British Asians or exclusion, they're almost being accused of being racist in some way, and that shuts down the dialogue. And that's not helpful, because we've got to understand there is a problem, and once we understand the problem is there, then clubs can change the mindsets and actually start doing things to address this.
So I did complain to the chairman at the time, Naimo. I told him, he said he would have a look at it, but as of yet they didn't reply to us. They ignored our emails, our phone calls and stuff like that. So what I felt like was, it's not going to happen. Like, no matter how much we knock on the door, bang on the door, they're never going to just give in.
To say it's racism is a massive accusation. And by not being selected because someone doesn't expect you to be good at football or isn't looking at you, that's not racism. You know, it's a form of discrimination for sure, but it's not racism, because racism is a dislike or a hatred. And so it's a massive accusation to make. And I don't think I've been subjected to racism by coaches, but it is just kind of a latent thought in their head that, oh, yeah, not really used to seeing Asians, or they won't even look out for you in the first place. There'll be coaches watching this thinking, you know, I'm not racist. Just because I haven't selected an Asian player, I'm not racist. And I don't think it's fair to accuse them of that.
Do you feel like you've faced racism through your short career in football so far?
No.
There may be instances when that does happen. I suspect for the most part, if you're good enough, you'll get it. Because from what I can see, all races are playing equally together.
Because it is diverse on the pitch, and especially we've got 30% of black players, and since the 1990s, 15% of players have been black British since the mid-1990s, which is actually overrepresented. Now, because on the pitch we see this visibility, we see this diversity, there's a tendency to suggest that football is meritocratic, that it's equal, it's egalitarian. If you're good enough, you get the job. If you're good enough, you'll get scouted. And that's not what's happening.
Although many would claim racism is the reason for the lack of British Asian players, others would suggest that major cultural differences, such as views on football from British Asian parents, a zero tolerance to alcohol, and overall footballing culture in England.
In terms of my mates, I mean, at university playing football, they perceived the lad culture, which was, you know, drinks after, smoking after, going clubbing after, and they didn't want to do that. They were Muslim, and they said they felt that they were dropped from the team because they refused to partake in that particular behaviour. And comments were then being made were saying how there's no room for Islam in football, and he was saying the last time I checked, it was my feet that was doing the football.
Let's say, for example, there's 2 kids of equal ability, or let's say 3 kids of equal ability, a white kid, an Asian kid and a black kid, all of equal ability. The odds of the Asian kid making it are lower. And there are cultural reasons for that, but then also a reason for that is the fact that you aren't given an opportunity. When I was at university, I went to the University of Essex and I was there for 4 years. The first 2 years, I never got selected for a team. I went to every tryout. I remember the first tryout when I went there as a fresher, scored a brilliant header. The game ended 1-1 in the trial game. And I thought to myself, look, there were 2 goals in the game. I scored the 1 goal that my team scored. It's a shoo-in. I'm definitely in a team. There were 6 teams at that point. So I was like, look, 75 odd or whatever, how many players are going to be selected for these teams, I'll definitely get in a team. Didn't get selected. Carried on going twice a week, training for 2 hours each session and scoring goals, doing well. And people would always come up to me and say, why don't you play for the uni? And I didn't have an answer. It was just a case of, I don't know, I just haven't been selected. And then that continued for 2 years. I'd carry on going just because I like playing football and didn't get selected. And I was absolutely desperate to play. And when I look back on it, when you figure out how people got selected, it was because of the fact that when captains were selected, they'd go out and they'd do this thing called father and sons, and you might know what that is, but a lot of people might not. And what it was is that you all go out together for a night out, and the father is the captain. If he dresses up as the doctor, all the sons would dress up as a nurse. If he dressed up as a priest, you'd all dress up as a nun. It's just not, the truth is, it's just not Asian culture.
If 21 of your players always go to a certain location and there's no absolute reason why the 22nd can't go there, then it's his issue, not theirs.
Initially, when I was a younger player, I kind of just didn't want to be in a situation where I'd be like, go out with the boys and then get a soft drink. It kind of, I thought, made the situation even worse. So what you try to do, what I used to do when I was younger, was to just not go. So I wouldn't use my religion as an excuse. The fact that, I don't do that, it's not what I'd like to do. At a young age, you kind of say, no, it's all right. And then all of a sudden you get a little bit of a label as being, a bit of a loner, not quite good socially. But I think people don't realise that, obviously, if you want to go and do something else, great. Or if you want to go to the pub, fine. I'm not getting drunk, that's not what I do. If my dad found that, he wouldn't let me out of the house.
You used the pub as an example. There's no thing that stops a Muslim going in a pub. He doesn't have to drink that alcohol. So it's a matter of tolerance.
I mean, it's like anything. If you have to make a decision on a player, you've seen him in a trial, which could be a game, it could be 2 weeks of training. What other information do you have to make a decision on that player? If you're Asian, that is a factor on your decision because it's different. He's Asian. What that mean? Will he have to fast? Will he be antisocial? Will he be weird in the changing room because he don't drink and don't get on with the lads? And all of a sudden, all these things may play into a decision. I'd like to think that people are more open-minded and realistic and more about the football. But let's face it, I think over the years there's been coaches that would use it as a factor in which they would decide or help them make their decision.
Education is a massive part of a British Asian family's lives. There is a pressure from parents on their children to do well at school and work towards a prestigious job such as a doctor or lawyer. This is reflected in society, with British Asians doing far better than white children at GCSE level. British Asian kids feel the pressure and want to do well to make their parents proud.
Realistically, I'd say parents are probably the biggest factor.
Education is absolutely key, for Asian families. It's a generalisation, but there's a massive focus on education.
I was reading up Cristiano Ronaldo's bio a while back, and he quit school at a very, very young age just to focus on football. Now, if he had South Asian parents, no way that would happen. Be like, no kid, you're going to school.
I had family saying, oh, you should be focusing on education, studying.
Parents just automatically have that feeling, and they're not gonna encourage their child to go into something which is like a slim chance of them getting into profession. So I feel like that it needs to change. Someone needs to tackle it, and there needs to be more opportunities and more there needs to be more patience with Asian youngsters.
When a South Asian mother or father sits down in cultural meetings or gatherings, with their friends, they say, my son's a doctor. What has your son done with his life?
I think every parent should want your child or children to have a good education. I think it's important.
And a lot of Asian parents, they might be financially, or maybe they just don't feel like, it's a waste of money, so they won't pay for their kids to play at that kind of level. And it's not always because it's a waste of money. They might just financially not have enough money to spend on something like that because it's not a necessity.
The problem is that the parents, as soon as the child, expresses his desires or his wish, he say, Mom, Dad, I want to go do this. It's the first and foremost barrier to that child's goal is that you say, sweetie, you won't be able to be like Cristiano Ronaldo or like David Beckham, is because you're not like them. They're going to exclude you, and it's just going to be a heartbreak for you, and we don't want you to go through heartbreak. But instead, if you go to university and you study sciences or biology, and you actually become a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer, this is something guaranteed. Your fate is not in the hands of someone else judging you or not.
Because, for example, my parents worked so hard to get us to this country, and if I'm telling them, I'm just going to go train, play football, it's not serious, something serious to them. So they want you to go to the education, or go to uni, do something educational, like doctor or study maths or something like that.
I have interviewed some players, and especially players coming through in the 1990s, whose parents were first generation. Some of their parents did actually say, you're not signing that contract. I don't want you to play football. And they were not massively supportive.
They want me to be a doctor, stuff like that. They don't really want me to be a footballer. I would really like my dad to come to watching me play, so he'll know how I play and stuff. So then he'll know that I'm actually really good.
I'm not, my parents aren't coming to every single training session, every single game, like the rest of the white lads. Like the parents is always there. I thought maybe it could be that. Maybe it could be because I'm not catching the train to football, but the other white lads are getting picked up and they're always on time every session.
But for second and third generation parents now, there is, for me and what I found in my research, they're as supportive as anybody. Yes, education's important, but if the kids want to play football and they're good enough and they see a career in that, the parents are supporting.
Football would be nothing without the fans. People from all different backgrounds, religions and races come together to support their club. English football has had a notoriously prejudiced past. The FA has made changes such as introducing trophies instead of champagne for Man of the Match awards and prayer rooms being installed in stadiums around the UK. How has the experience of a British Asian changed, and is the FA doing enough to support them?
I think the little details are the thing that matter the most. It is all in the fine print and none of the little things. Not having alcohol, having to represent everything makes a big difference for Muslims.
Stuff like that, it does make a difference, but I think they could do more. I wouldn't know what. Probably have to have a think about that, but it's a start. You could say it's a start.
For football to acknowledge that, I think is a beautiful thing, because they didn't have to, because it's tradition. This is what we do and this is how we do it. So, if you don't want to drink it, that's fine, but we want to present you with something that we feel you deserve for being the best player on the pitch. So it's about working together, really. And you can understand, both extreme opinions. Well, we've done it for years, why are we going to change it? And, well, we don't want you to change it just for us. But actually, if the change you can still realise that symbol of acknowledgement and achievement, and it's something that someone can utilise more so than a bottle of champagne. It makes sense.
It's such a brilliant example, the champagne, and now they get little trophies instead of a bottle of champagne. So here's the thing, here's the supremacy showing itself. Everyone has to not get champagne because Islam doesn't allow it. This is it's the same as the halal food in schools. It's Islam's superior, placing itself as superior status over everyone else. That is because it is a supremacist religion and it believes in its own supremacy very strongly. So it's never the case where the Muslim player says, well, you know what, I'll just have to put up with it. I'm in a society where the majority drink alcohol. It may be against my religion, but I'll just have to put up with it. That doesn't happen. Everyone else has to stop what they're doing and accommodate Islam.
It's great that they said, no, we're not going to do champagne, we're going to do a trophy. But then that annoys some people. And then when people say, oh, look at all of these concessions we're making for Muslims, I didn't ask for that. You know, I've got no problem if, you know, Jordan Henderson gets a bottle of champagne. And I almost wish that when they make these decisions, they're a bit more sensitive to the collateral damage that's going to occur, because no Muslim, or no Muslim that I know anyway, has got an issue with other people doing things that they want to do it. You know, minding their own business, just live and let live. That's how we want to live our lives, and we're happy for other people to live their lives like that. So it'd almost be better if they said, look, you have the option of a trophy or champagne and a trophy.
Because, you know, you can't assume that you know the answer to all these questions. I think you need to speak to people of all cultures, religions, in any incident to find out exactly what these issues are and work together to find a solution.
There has been a reduction of hate in stadiums compared to how it was maybe 5-10 years ago when I went as a young kid, as a 5-year-old, to my first game with my dad. And I think that does come from the help that Premier League clubs are providing. You see the campaigns that they show pre-match in the stadium on the big screen. You see the players wearing t-shirts that maybe stand for a certain campaign. We've seen the Kick Racism Out of Football campaign.
I think what we can do better is to work together more, share best practice. You know, what can we do in Sunderland that may benefit those in London? You know, what are they doing in Birmingham that those in Manchester could really, you know, find beneficial? I think it's about working together, and I think it's about having an understanding. I think we need to actually ask questions, find out if there's a problem, why is it a problem? Not assume we have the answers.
Premier League and the professional world becoming inclusive to everyone and making little changes for everyone will make everyone have a better experience. And if everyone has a better experience, then only good can come out of that.
A big talking point from the 2017-2018 season was Mohamed Salah, a devout Muslim and star player for Liverpool and Egypt. Although he may not be British Asian, Salah has broken down the barrier between the typical English football fan and Islam, the most popular religion for British Asians, with his form, goals and one special song.
If he's good enough for you, he's good enough for me. If he's good enough for you, then I'll be Muslim too. If he's good enough for you, he's good enough for me. Sitting in the mosque, that's where I want to be.
When you look at the lyrics of that chant, for it to just happen and for it to have absolutely no shred of any sort of animosity or any dislike, I thought it was really, really refreshing.
The first time I heard that song and that chant and people, I said, is this fake, or is this someone that just put this up together with their friends to make a muck out of this?
Some of my friends weren't happy with the Mo Salah song at Liverpool.
I actually feel like the Mohamed Salah chant is a really positive thing.
Certain people need to understand what they're saying is offensive.
It wasn't a case of, even though he's Muslim, we like him. You know, there was nothing that even had a hint of any negativity.
The chant was actually something that my mum showed me, she has no interest in football at all. But because it's Mohamed Salah, because it's a Muslim, and because of the chant and the words that were being said, she got interested, she saw it on Facebook and she shared it with all her friends.
No matter what, you've had the ability to change some traditional football fans into accepting your culture, accepting your religion, accepting you as who you are.
It was wholly positive, and so I was all for it. I sang along to it, and I I don't think I spoke to anyone, any Muslims, that didn't like it.
The vast majority of my Muslim friends said no, that is not appropriate, and they did perceive that as Islamophobic. They don't think the fans understood what they were doing.
I've had games where I've invited the Asian community to some of my clubs, and at those particular games, the same fans that are singing my name are also ridiculing young Asian people that come to watch me play. How does that work? How does that make sense? But because I'm in a shirt with an armband and I'm scoring goals for their team, I'm all right. I think that's a sign of the times, you know, because it's changed, but we don't live in a utopia. And that's that whole mentality of, well, you're all right because you're our captain and you play for us. But I'm not sure these are. So this sort of stuff is the kind of battle that I've had, you know, my whole life, really.
Is the battle over? And how long before we see an increase in British Asian players in English football? Although I do believe football is meritocratic and that British Asian culture does not partner well with English football, the alarming stat of only 10 British Asian players in the Football League is shocking and does point to a prejudice at grassroots level. It is unclear when we will see a British Asian player in an England shirt, but for the sake of the people I interviewed during this film, I hope it's soon.